Plymouth is a city on the south coast of Devon, England, about 37 miles southwest of Exeter and 190 miles west-southwest of London, between the mouths of the rivers Plym to the east and Tamar to the west, where they join Plymouth Sound to form the boundary with Cornwall. Plymouth's early history extends to the Bronze Age, when a first settlement emerged at Mount Batten. This settlement continued as a trading post for the Roman Empire, until it was surpassed by the more prosperous village of Sutton, now called Plymouth. In 1620, the Pilgrim Fathers departed Plymouth for the New World and established Plymouth Colony, the second English settlement in what is now the United States of America. During the English Civil War, the town was held by the parliamentarians and was besieged between 1642 and 1646. Throughout the Industrial Revolution, Plymouth grew as a commercial shipping port, handling imports and passengers from the Americas, and exporting local minerals, while the neighboring town of Devonport became a strategic Royal Naval shipbuilding and dockyard town. In 1914, three neighboring independent towns, viz., the County Borough of Plymouth, the County Borough of Devonport, and the urban district of East Stonehouse, were merged to form a single county borough. The combined town took the name of Plymouth, which, in 1928, achieved city status. The city's naval importance later led to its targeting and partial destruction during World War II, an act known as the Plymouth Blitz. After the war, the city centre was completely rebuilt, and subsequent expansion led to the incorporation of Plympton and Plymstock along with other outlying suburbs in 1967. The city is home to 261,546 people, making it the 30th most populous built-up area in the United Kingdom and the second largest city in the southwest, after Bristol. It is governed locally by Plymouth City Council and is represented nationally by 3 MPs. Plymouth's economy remains strongly influenced by shipbuilding and seafaring, including ferry links to Brittany and Spain, but has tended toward a service-based economy since the 1990s. It has the largest operational naval base in Western Europe, HMNB Devonport, and is home to Plymouth University. History. Early history. Upper Paleolithic deposits, including bones of Homo sapiens, have been found in local caves, and artifacts dating from the Bronze Age to the Middle Iron Age have been found at Mount Batten, showing that it was one of the main trading ports of the country at the time. An unidentified settlement named Tamar is listed in Ptolemy's Geographia and is presumed to be located in the area of the modern city. The settlement of Plympton, further up the River Plym than the current Plymouth, was also an early trading port, but the river silted up in the early 11th century and forced the mariners and merchants to settle at the current-day Barbican near the river mouth. At the time, this village was called Sutton, meaning South Town in Old English. The name Plymouth, meaning mouth of the River Plym, was first mentioned in a pipe roll of 1211. The name Plymouth first officially replaced Sutton in a charter of King Henry VI in 1440. See Plympton for the derivation of the name Plym. Early defense and Renaissance. During the 100 Years' War, a French attack burned a manor house and took some prisoners, but failed to get into the town. In 1403, the town was burned by Breton raiders. In the late 15th century, Plymouth Castle, a castle quadrate, was constructed close to the area now known as the Barbican. It included 4 round towers, one at each corner, as featured on the city coat of arms. The castle served to protect Sutton Pool, which is where the fleet was based in Plymouth prior to the establishment of Plymouth Dockyard. In 1512, an Act of Parliament was passed for further fortifying Plymouth, and a series of fortifications were then built, including defensive walls at the entrance to Sutton Pool. Defences on St. Nicholas Island also date from this time, and a string of 6 artillery blockhouses were built. including one on Fish's Nose at the southeastern corner of the Hoe. This location was further strengthened by the building of a fort in 1596, which itself went on to provide the site for the citadel, established in the 1660s. During the 16th century, locally produced wool was the major export commodity. Plymouth was the home port for successful maritime traders, among them Sir John Hawkins, who led England's first foray into the Atlantic slave trade, as well as Sir Francis Drake, Mayor of Plymouth in 1581 and 1593. According to legend, Drake insisted on completing his game of bowls on the Hoe before engaging the Spanish Armada in 1588. In 1620 the Pilgrim Fathers set sail for the New World from Plymouth, establishing Plymouth Colony, the second English colony in what is now the United States of America. During the English Civil War, Plymouth sided with the Parliamentarians and was besieged for almost 4 years by the Royalists. The last major attack by the Royalists was by Sir Richard Grenville leading thousands of soldiers towards Plymouth, but they were defeated by the Plymouthians at Freedom Fields Park. The Civil War ended as a parliamentary win, but monarchy was restored by King Charles II in 1660, who imprisoned many of the parliamentary heroes on Drake's Island. Construction of the royal citadel began in 1665. After the Restoration, it was armed with cannon facing both out to sea and into the town, rumored to be a reminder to residents not to oppose the crown. Mount Batten Tower also dates from around this time. Plymouth Dock, naval power and Falston. Throughout the 17th century, Plymouth had gradually lost its preeminence as a trading port. By the mid-17th century, commodities manufactured elsewhere in England cost too much to transport to Plymouth, and the city had no means of processing sugar or tobacco imports, although it did play a relatively small part in the Atlantic slave trade during the early 18th century. In the nearby parish of Stoke Damrell, the first dockyard, HMNB Devonport, opened in 1690 on the eastern bank of the River Tamar. Further docks were built here in 1727, 1762 and 1793. The settlement that developed here was called Dock, or Plymouth Dock, at the time, and a new town, separate from Plymouth, grew up. In 1712 there were 318 men employed, and by 1733 it had grown to a population of 3,000 people. Before the latter half of the 18th century, grain, timber and then coal were Plymouth's main imports. During this time the real source of wealth was from the neighbouring town of Plymouth Dock, and the major employer in the entire region was the dockyard. The three towns conurbation of Plymouth, Stonehouse and Devonport enjoyed some prosperity during the late 18th and early 19th century, and were enriched by a series of neoclassical urban developments designed by London architect John Falston. Falston was important for both Devonport and Plymouth and was responsible for several public buildings, many now destroyed, including the Athenaeum, the Theatre Royal and Royal Hotel, and much of Union Street. Local chemist William Cookworthy established his short-lived Plymouth porcelain venture in 1768 to exploit the deposits of china clay that he had discovered in Cornwall. He was acquainted with engineer John Smeaton, the builder of the third Eddystone Lighthouse. The 1-mile-long breakwater in Plymouth Sound was designed by John Rennie in order to protect the fleet moving in and out of Devonport. Work started in 1812. Numerous technical difficulties and repeated storm damage meant that it was not completed until 1841, 20 years after Rennie's death. In the 1860s, 1960s, a ring of Palmerston forts was constructed around the outskirts of Devonport, to protect the dockyard from attack from any direction. Some of the greatest imports to Plymouth from the Americas and Europe during the latter half of the 19th century included maize, wheat, barley, sugar cane, guano, sodium nitrate and phosphate. Aside from the dockyard in the town of Devonport, industries in Plymouth such as the gasworks, the railways and tramways and a number of small chemical works had begun to develop in the 19th century, continuing into the 20th century. During the First World War, Plymouth was the port of entry for many troops from around the Empire and also developed as a facility for the manufacture of munitions. Although major units of the Royal Navy moved to the safety of Scapa Flow, Devonport was an important base for escort vessels and repairs. Flying boats operated from Mount Batten. In the First World War, Devonport was the headquarters of Western Approaches Command until 1941, and Sunderland flying boats were operated by the Royal Australian Air Force. It was an important embarkation point for U.S. troops for D-Day. The city was heavily bombed by the Luftwaffe in a series of 59 raids known as the Plymouth Blitz. Although the dockyards were the principal targets, much of the city centre and over 3,700 houses were completely destroyed and more than 1,000 civilians lost their lives. This was largely due to Plymouth's status as a major port. Charles Church was hit by incendiary bombs and partially destroyed in 1941 during the Blitz, but has not been demolished, as it is now an official permanent monument to the bombing of Plymouth during World War II. The redevelopment of the city was planned by Sir Patrick Abercrombie in his 1943 plan for Plymouth, whilst simultaneously working on the reconstruction plan for London. Between 1951 and 1957, over 1,000 homes were completed every year, mostly using innovative prefabricated systems of just three main types. By 1964, over 20,000 new homes had been built, transforming the dense, overcrowded and unsanitary slums of the pre-war city into a low-density, dispersed suburbia. Most of the city centre shops had been destroyed, and those that remained were cleared to enable the zoned reconstruction according to his plan. In 1962, the modernist high-rise of the Civic Centre was constructed, an architecturally significant example of mid-20th century civic slab and tower set piece allowed to fall into disrepair by its owner Plymouth City Council, but recently Grade 2 listed by English Heritage to prevent its demolition. Post-war, Devonport Dockyard was kept busy refitting aircraft carriers such as the Ark Royal and, later, nuclear submarines, while new light industrial factories were constructed in the newly zoned industrial sector, attracting rapid growth of the urban population. The army had substantially left the city by 1971, with barracks pulled down in the 1960s. However, the city remains home to the 42 Commando of the Royal Marines. Government. Local government history. The first record of the existence of a settlement at Plymouth was in the Domesday Book in 1086 as Sutton, Saxon for South Farm, located at the present-day Barbican. From Saxon times, it was in the hundred of Roborough. In 1254 it gained status as a town, and in 1439 became the first town in England to be granted a charter by Parliament. Between 1439 and 1934, Plymouth had a mayor. In 1914 the county boroughs of Plymouth and Devonport, and the urban district of East Stonehouse merged to form a single county borough of Plymouth. Collectively they were referred to as the Three Towns. In 1919 Nancy Astor was elected the first ever female Member of Parliament to take office in the British Houses of Parliament for the constituency constituency of Plymouth Sutton, taking over office from her husband Waldorf Astor. Lady Astor was a vibrantly active campaigner for her resident constituents. Plymouth was granted city status on the 18th of October 1928. The city's first Lord Mayor was appointed in 1935, and its boundaries further expanded in 1967, to include the town of Plympton and the parish of Plymstock. In 1945, Plymouth-born Michael Foot was elected Labour MP for the war-torn constituency of Plymouth, Devonport, and after serving as Secretary of State for Education and responsible for the 1974 Health and Safety at Work Act, went on to become one of the most distinguished leaders of the Labour Party. The 1971 local government white paper proposed abolishing county boroughs, which would have left Plymouth, a town of 250,000 people, being administered from a council based at the smaller Exeter on the other side of the county. This led to Plymouth lobbying for the creation of a Tamar-side county, to include Plymouth, Torpoint, Saltash, and the rural hinterland. The campaign was not successful, and Plymouth ceased to be a county borough on 1 April 1974, with responsibility for education, social services, highways and libraries transferred to Devon County Council. All powers returned when the city became a unitary authority on 1 April 1998 under recommendations of the Banham Commission. In the Parliament of the United Kingdom, Plymouth is represented by the three constituencies of Plymouth Moorview, Plymouth Sutton and Devonport and South West Devon, and within the European Parliament is South West England. In the 2015 general election, all three constituencies returned Conservative MPs, who were Oliver Colville, Gary Streeter and Johnny Mercer for Moorview. City Council. The City of Plymouth is divided into 20 wards, 17 of which elect 3 councillors and the other 3 electing 2 councillors, making up a total council of 57. Each year a third of the council is up for election for 3 consecutive years. There are no elections on the following 4th year, which is when county council elections take place. The total electorate for Plymouth was 188,924 in April 2015. The local election of 7 May 2015 resulted in a political composition of 28 Labour councillors, 26 Conservative and 3 UKIP, resulting in a Labour administration. Plymouth City Council is formally twinned with Brest, France; Gdynia, Poland; Novorossiysk, Russia; San Sebastian, Spain; and Plymouth, United States. Plymouth was granted the dignity of Lord Mayor by King George V in 1935. The position is elected each year by a group of 6 councillors. It is traditional that the position of the Lord Mayor alternates between the Conservative Party and the Labour Party annually, and that the Lord Mayor chooses the Deputy Lord Mayor. Conservative councillor Dr. John Mahoney is the incumbent for 2015-16. The Lord Mayor's official residence is 3 Elliot Terrace, located on the Hoe, once a home of Waldorf and Nancy Astor. It was given by Lady Astor to the City of Plymouth as an official residence for future Lord Mayors, and is also used today for civic hospitality, as lodgings for visiting dignitaries and High Court judges, and it is also available to hire for private events. The Civic Centre Municipal Office Building in Armada Way became a listed building in June 2007 because of its quality and period features, but has become the centre of a controversy as the council planned for its demolition, estimating that it could cost £40 million to refurbish it, resulting in possible job losses. Geography. Plymouth lies between the River Plym to the east and the River Tamar to the west. Both rivers flow into the natural harbour of Plymouth Sound. Since 1967, the unitary authority of Plymouth has included the once independent towns of Plympton and Plymstock, which lie along the east of the River Plym. The River Tamar forms the county boundary between Devon and Cornwall, and its estuary forms the Hamos on which is sited Devonport Dockyard. The River Plym, which flows off Dartmoor to the northeast, forms a smaller estuary to the east of the city called Cattewater. Plymouth Sound is protected from the sea by the Plymouth Breakwater, in use since 1814. In the Sound is Drake's Island, which is seen from Plymouth Hoe, a flat public area on top of limestone cliffs. The unitary authority of Plymouth is 79.84 square kilometers. The topography rises from sea level to a height at Roborough of about 509 feet above Ordnance datum. Geologically, Plymouth has a mixture of limestone, Devonian slate, granite and Middle Devonian limestone. Plymouth Sound, shores and cliffs is a site of special scientific interest because of its geology. The bulk of the city is built upon Upper Devonian slates and shales, and the headlands at the entrance to Plymouth Sound are formed of Lower Devonian slates, which can withstand the power of the sea. A band of Middle Devonian limestone runs west to east from Cremel to Plymstock, including the Hoe. Local limestone may be seen in numerous buildings, walls and pavements throughout Plymouth. To the north and northeast of the city is the granite mass of Dartmoor. The granite was mined and exported via Plymouth. Rocks brought down the Tamar from Dart in Moor include ores containing tin, copper, tungsten, lead and other minerals. There is evidence that the Middle Devonian limestone belt at the south edge of Plymouth and in Plymstock was quarried at West Hoe, Catterdown and Radford. Urban form. On the 27th of April 1944, Sir Patrick Abercrombie's plan for Plymouth to rebuild the bomb-damaged city was published. It called for demolition of the few remaining pre-war buildings in the city centre to make way for the replacement with wide, parallel, modern boulevards aligned east-west, linked by a north-south avenue linking the railway station with the vista of Plymouth Hoe. A peripheral road system connecting the historic Barbican on the eastern Union Street to the west determines the principal form of the city centre, even following pedestrianisation of the shopping centre in the late 1980s, and continues to inform the present vision for Plymouth, developed by a team led by Barcelona-based architect David Mackay in 2003, which calls for revivification of the city centre with mixed use and residential. In suburban areas, post-war prefabs had already begun to appear by 1946, and over 1,000 permanent council houses were built each year from 1951 to 57, according to the modernist zoned low-density garden city model advocated by Abercrombie. By 1964, over 20,000 new homes had been built, more than 13,500 of them permanent council homes and 853 built by the Admiralty. Plymouth is home to 28 parks with an average size of 45,638 square meters. Its largest park is Central Park, with other sizable green spaces including Victoria Park, Freedom Fields Park, Alexandra Park, Devonport Park and the Hoe. Climate. Along with the rest of southwest England, Plymouth has a temperate oceanic climate which is generally wetter and milder than the rest of England. This means a wide range of exotic plants can be grown. The annual mean temperature is approximately 11 degrees Celsius. Due to the modifying effect of the sea, the seasonal range is less than in most other parts of the UK. As a result of this, summer highs are lower than points further north in the UK. However, the coldest month of February has mean minimum temperatures as mild as between 3 and 4 degrees Celsius. Snow is rare, not usually equating to more than a few flakes, but there have been exclusions, namely the European winter storms of 2009-10 which, in early January, covered Plymouth in at least 1 inch of snow more on higher ground. Another period of notable snow occurred from 17 to 19 December 2010 when up to 8 inches of snow fell through the period, though only 2 inches would lie at any one time due to melt. Over the 1961 to 1990 period, annual snowfall accumulation averaged less than 7 centimeters per year. July and August are the warmest months with mean daily maxima over 19 degrees Celsius. Southwest England has a favoured location when the Azores high-pressure area extends northeastwards towards the UK, particularly in summer. Coastal areas have average annual sunshine totals over 1,600 hours. Rainfall tends to be associated with Atlantic depressions or with convection. The Atlantic depressions are more vigorous in autumn and winter, and most of the rain which falls in those seasons in the southwest is from this source. Average annual rainfall is around 980 mm. November to March have the highest mean wind speeds, with June to August having the lightest winds. The predominant wind direction is from the southwest. Typically, the warmest day of the year will achieve a temperature of 26.6 degrees Celsius, although in June 1976 the temperature reached 31.6 degrees Celsius. The site record, on average, 4.25 days of the year will report a maximum temperature of 25.1 degrees Celsius or above. During the winter half of the year, the coldest night will typically fall to minus 4.1 degrees Celsius, although in January 1979 the temperature fell to minus 8.8 degrees Celsius. Typically, 18.6 nights of the year will register an air frost. Education. The University of Plymouth enrolls 25,895 total students as of 2014-15. It also employs 3,000 staff with an annual income of around £160 million. It was founded in 1992 from Polytechnic South West following the Further and Higher Education Act 1992. It has courses in maritime business, marine engineering, marine biology and earth, ocean and environmental sciences, surf science, shipping and logistics. The university formed a joint venture with the fellow Devonian University of Exeter in 2000, establishing the Peninsula College of Medicine and Dentistry. The college is ranked 8th out of 30 universities in the UK in 2011 for medicine. Its dental school was established in 2006, which also provides free dental care in an attempt to improve access to dental care in the southwest. The University of St Mark and St John specializes in teacher training and offers training across the country and abroad. The city is also home to 2 large colleges. The City College Plymouth provides courses from the most basic to foundation degrees for approximately 26,000 students. Plymouth College of Art offers a selection of courses including media. It was started 153 years ago and is now one of only 4 independent colleges of art and design in the UK. Plymouth also has 71 state primary phase schools, 13 state secondary schools, 8 special schools and 3 selective state grammar schools. Devonport High School for girls, Devonport High School for boys and Plymouth High School for girls. There is also an independent school, Plymouth College. The city was also home to the Royal Naval Engineering College, opened in 1880 in Kyam. It trained engineering students for 5 years before they completed the remaining 2 years of the course at Greenwich. The college closed in 1910, but in 1940 a new college opened at Manhattan. This was renamed Dockyard Technical College in 1959, before finally closing in 1994. Training was transferred to the University of Southampton. Plymouth is home to the Marine Biological Association of the United Kingdom, which conducts research in all areas of the marine sciences. The Plymouth Marine Laboratory is an offshoot of the IMBA. Together with the National Marine Aquarium, the Sir Alister Hardy Foundation for Ocean Sciences, Plymouth University's Marine Institute and the Diving Diseases Research Centre. These marine-related organizations formed the Plymouth Marine Sciences Partnership. The Plymouth Marine Laboratory, which focuses on global issues of climate change and sustainability. It monitors the effects of ocean acidity on corals and shellfish and reports the results to the UK government. It also cultivates algae that could be used to make biofuels or in the treatment of wastewater by using technology such as photobioreactors. It works alongside the Boots Group to investigate the use of algae in skincare products, taking advantage of the chemicals they contain that adapt to protect themselves from the sun.